Thank you for joining us with our news on QTV. My name is Diana Sumbwe. We look at the headlines. Government says the decision by Lusaka Mayor Miles Sampa to appoint an acting mayor in his absence is unlawful. Zambia's economic outlook for 2019 and 2020 has been projected to be positive, with growth forecast for 2019 expected at 4.1%. And the Lusaka Water and Storage Company has indefinitely suspended water supply to Chirundu district. And now details in our news. Local Government Permanent Secretary Amos Malupenga says it is unlawful for Lusaka Mayor Miles Sampa to appoint a councillor to act as mayor in his absence. Mr. Malupenga says a mayor has no powers to appoint a councillor to act in his or her absence. He has told journalists in Lusaka that the decision by Mr. Sampa is outre vires to Section 20 of the Local Government Act, Chapter 281 of the Laws of Zambia. Mr. Malupenga explains that Section 20 of the Local Government Act, Chapter 281 of the Laws of Zambia, states that whenever the office of the mayor or chairman of a council is vacant, or the mayor or chairman is absent, or is for any other cause prevented for or incapable of discharging the functions of his office, the deputy or vice chairman of the council, or if the office of the deputy mayor or vice chairman is vacant, or the deputy mayor or vice chairman is absent, or is for any other cause prevented for or incapable of discharging the functions of his office, a councillor elected by the council shall discharge the functions of the office of the mayor or chairman of the council. Mr. Malupenga says in this case the Lusaka deputy mayor is in the country and her office is not vacant. Thus, there is no justification for the mayor appointing another person to act. He states that even if the deputy mayor was incapable of performing the functions of the mayor, there is no provision in the law allowing the mayor to appoint any councillor as acting mayor. Mr. Malupenga says the law provides that the council shall elect the councillor to act as mayor where both the mayor and deputy mayor are not available. Lusaka Mayor Miles Sampa, who has traveled to the United States for council business, appointed Ngwerere 19 Councillor Adrian Banda to act in his absence instead of the substantive deputy mayor Chilando Chitangala. Zanaco has projected a positive economic outlook for the country for 2019 and 2020, with growth forecast for 2019 expected at 4.1%. Speaking at the end-of-year economic review breakfast meeting in Lusaka, Bankhead economic researcher Patrick Chileche says in 2020, economic growth is projected at 4.3%. And Dr. Chileche has revealed that the kwacha was one of the worst performing currencies in Africa in the third quarter of 2018 because of negative sentiments such as the purported takeover of the running of ZESCO and other parastatals by China. Dr. Chileche says economic activities deteriorated in the third quarter of 2018, mainly due to the drop in commodity prices, high exchange rate volatility, and build-up in arrears. He says the 2018 economic growth is expected at 3.8% from the earlier forecast of 4.3%. Dr. Chileche says risks to growth include trade wars between the United States of America and China, failure to unbundle arrears, and projected poor rainfall by the Meteorological Department. He adds that other risks include tight global financial conditions, failure to resolve fiscal challenges, and the reintroduction of the sales tax to replace VAT.
There are quite a number of interventions that we can take to actually cushion the impact of higher oil prices, especially the need to take advantage of prevailing lower prices on the international market. A good example could be, for example, if we had a treasury function at the Ministry of Finance, probably they could enter into forward contracts, they could enter into futures contracts, in which case they are going to hedge the country against fluctuating prices of crude oil. So, for example, at the moment, crude oil is priced at $53 per barrel. The best thing that a person would do is to buy this crude oil for delivery in 30 days' time, so that the country can actually benefit from the lower crude oil prices that we have now. So the most important thing that we need to have is we need to have, the government needs to find time and probably set up a fully fledged treasury function at the Ministry of Finance, so that we also remove some of the responsibility that the central bank has now. Because at the moment, the central bank handles the treasury function on behalf of government. So on part of political will, as you've mentioned, I think for us to benefit from...
Speaking at the same event, Zanaco Managing Director and Chief Executive Officer Henk Mulder said one of the major highlights of the year for the bank was being declared the best bank in Zambia at the 2018 Euro Money Awards for Excellence. Mr. Mulder says the prestigious awards is a demonstration of the sound business model and strategy the bank implemented in the year ending 2018. He states that the bank has continued to deliver on its medium-term plan to be the top transactional bank in Zambia by 2020. And Mr. Mulder says the new regulatory changes regarding the prohibition of certain bank charges by the Bank of Zambia pose a challenge on the entire banking sector.
On top of that, we got a Governor's Award for Financial Literacy. We invest a lot for different people also in the countryside to inform them about financial literacy. We invest a lot into that as well. And on top of it, we got a marketing award, I think last week or the week before, in Livingston for our Kula campaign, which you all must have seen grow into in greatness. It's an important campaign which is going to continue. That was the exciting part, and it does not mean that because of all these awards that we become arrogant and we become complacent as Zanaco. Definitely not, because this is just the beginning, which gives at least some recognition to the transformation that we all go through within the bank, and I hope you as clients also notice that, because customer service and customer retention is for us key in the whole transformation. It's not, so I said we are not complacent, definitely not, and you will see more of us. It was also an issue in the last few months. You have seen that a lot of our income has been taken away by the central bank. Maybe some of you are happy with that. The banking industry as a whole is not, I can tell you, and that had quite an impact.
The Lusaka Water and Storage Company has suspended water supply to Chirundu district as a result of high turbidity levels on the Zambezi River, which is the source of the company's water. In a statement, Company Marketing and Public Relations Manager Patson Piri says the high turbidity levels have rendered water treatment virtually impossible. Mr. Piri says all efforts have been made, but that the water quality remains compromised. He says in the last 24 hours, the water utility has observed that the main production unit is discharging water with dark color that is not recommended for human consumption. Mr. Perry states that the company has a duty to protect the lives of the people, and having analyzed these developments, it has become necessary to suspend supply until the quality of water on the Zambezi River improves. He says in the meantime, chemists have been deployed to Chirundu to continue testing and giving updates on levels of water quality. Mr. Perry, however, states that the smaller production unit remains active where customers are receiving water. He has since appealed to the residents who are still receiving water to share with the vast portion of the residents who are not receiving water supply. Chief Mpande of the Mambwe-speaking people in Mbala district has observed that some traditional ceremonies are contributing to increasing cases of child marriage. He says some traditional ceremonies initiate girls that have reached puberty but are not taught about how to keep themselves from falling pregnant. Chief Mpande says the young girls, once they reach puberty, are being told that they are mature and ready for marriage. He notes the need through the House of Chiefs to choose mature women who should also sensitize girls on how to keep themselves so that they do not fall pregnant. German ambassador to Zambia, Akim Bukat, has described as positive signs Zambia's stance on the death penalty. Mr. Bukat says Germany has taken note of the announcement by the Zambian government that it will sign a moratorium on the execution of the death penalty. He has told QTV News that the question of whether the government will go ahead to abolish the death penalty or not is for a further step in the future. Mr. Bukat says Zambia has put itself on the side of the people, by the step it has so far taken on the death penalty.
Actually, there's one thing which I would like to highlight. I think that Zambia stands towards the abolition of the death penalty is a very positive sign that they will sign finally the moratorium. The question of whether it will be abolished or not is for a further step in the future, but I think Zambia itself puts itself on the side of the people who respect human rights and abolish the death penalty. That's a very good news.
The University of Zambia UNZA has procured an ultra-modern industrial printing machine at a cost of 10.5 million kwacha, which is capable of printing ballot papers. UNZA Vice-Chancellor Luke Mumba says the UNZA printer machine, which will be used for commercial purposes, has the best practice capacity in printing at all levels of customer specification. Professor Mumba says the printer, once installed, will help the university generate income to sustain the quality for teaching, research and community service. Speaking during the university's fourth quarter media briefing, Professor Mumba says the printer will be commissioned in January 2019. Professor Mumba adds that the university will in 2019 embark on the construction of 2 new lecturer theaters at a cost of 2 million United States dollars, with seating capacity of between 400 to 450 students. And Professor Mumba says about 665 students out of 14,356 students did not write their end of academic year examinations due to financial constraints, while 12 students were disqualified for engaging in examination malpractices.
These are students who even failed to raise the 37.5% required for them to be registered. And as a consequence, these 665 were not able to write their end of year academic examinations. But as a listening management, we have extended an olive branch to these students. We have said, we are going to do something which is not normal in your university operations. We are going to allow you to withdraw on financial grounds, so that you go and look for money, you come back next year and register. Normally we would not do that, because to withdraw you must be a registered student first and foremost. But we have bent our rules in order to accommodate these very needy students. We hope that they'll be able to come back next year. As you are aware, the university has 3 sources of income, namely government grants. Take note of the percentages. 28%.
Meanwhile, UNZA Registrar Staliwa Mundila says the institution will introduce 3 types of gowns at its 48th graduation ceremony in March 2019. Barclays Bank Zambia Managing Director Mzinga Melo has disclosed that the bank has this year so far spent about 4.2 million United States dollars in financing various projects in the various sectors of the economy. Ms. Melo has explained that the 4.2 million United States dollars was spent on financing projects in energy, agriculture and mining, among other sectors. She has pledged her bank's support to key sectors to cushion the impact of the challenges economic environment the country has been experiencing. Mrs. Melo has told journalists during an end-of-year breakfast briefing that the bank will continue to support the mining, agriculture, energy, manufacturing, telecommunication and public sectors. She says the bank has also invested about 42 million kwacha in its technological advancement in the quest to ensure that every Zambian is financially included. Meanwhile, Mrs. Melu says so far the bank has reached 54,000 farmers of the targeted 75,000 under the Farmer Input Support Program, FISIP.
We have reached at least 54,000 farmers, I think, which is a lot. We're hoping that by the end of the year we would have reached 75,000 farmers, but so far we have done 54,000, I think, which is great. And that goes to your question, how are the customers taking this? I think customers remain very confident, in the journey. We've got customers who've been here many years, having been here 100 years. And it really goes to how we continue to touch each and every one of the customers. Our aim is the more we touch the customers and explain the journey, then it's become something which is much easier for them. So our communication has been very robust, and it's not just communication, but it's even the way we are dealing with the customers. That's why I'm talking about the farmers, having reached 54,000 plants. It means each and every one of these plants, as they're coming into the branch, we're explaining the journey. I must thank the customers because they have been extremely supportive to partners. They have been extremely supportive to the journey. I must also thank my staff, the colleagues in the bank and the board. I think they also have, explained the journey. We've got 850 employees, and imagine if those reach at least, 10 people in their cycle, they go about explaining this journey, and they have done that really well. But if you also talk about the results that we just...
The ruling Patriotic Front says it considers the agitation that has arisen in the opposition following last Friday's Constitutional Court ruling on President Edgar Lungu's eligibility for the 2021 elections as a positive feedback. Patriotic Front Chairperson for Legal Affairs, Brian Mondubile, says the dissenting voices over the court's decision to clear President Edgar Lungu to stand in 2021 only shows that the ruling party has a stronger candidate. Mr. Mondubile says this explains why opposition leaders have now ganged up, notwithstanding their earlier claim that President Lungu will be the weakest candidate to beat in 2021. In an interview with QTV News, Mr. Mondubile, who is also Northern Province Minister, says it is clear for anyone to see that the opposition is lost of what to use to campaign. He says the opposition cannot capitalize on the ruling and accuse the Constitutional Court of having overstepped its jurisdiction if they had something to tell the people. He says what the Constitutional Court ruling has done as far as the ruling Patriotic Front is concerned is to bring about a settlement in the country and inspire the people to have confidence in the judiciary. Mr. Mondubile says the Patriotic Front does not therefore think anyone should accuse the Constitutional Court of having any biasness towards it.
It's very important for you to look at the mood around this matter before and after. We're all anxious. If by any chance there was any strand of truth in what people are trying to allege, we would have been sitting pretty and sitting very comfortably. But we're all very anxious about the outcome of the Congo. What that meant was that the judiciary is independent, because it could go either ways. And interpretation of the law can be a very complex science. And clearly we are looking at the same constitution, we are looking at the same text. But what is the interpretation of the court? So we all were waiting for the court for the final determination. And that means that even as the executive, we did not have a clear answer of what was going to come out of the court. So it's not exactly true. It's not true at all that
the Foreign Affairs Office of Shandong Province in China is ready to put in writing the intent to twin Shandong Province with Zambia's Eastern Province. Shandong Province Vice Minister Ren Eryong says they want to actively push forward cooperation between the two provinces and establish contact with the Eastern Province's administration. Ms. Ren says with respect with the Zambian government's recommendation for the establishment of a Chinese gold mine in Eastern Province, her team will conduct a feasibility study. Speaking when she led a delegation that called on Minister of Foreign Affairs Joe Malanji at his office, Ms. Ren requested that some Shandong Province businesses be facilitated with visas. Ms. Ren, whose delegation is en route to Eastern Province, says her province is looking forward to also establishing a working mechanism with the Zambian Ministry of Foreign Affairs. She also offered her province's support to the Confucius Institute at the University of Zambia. Ms. Ren spoke through an interpreter.
也有多个企业在赞比亚进行投资经贸活动都得到了赞比亚以及我们外交部的热情的款待。
Many delegations from Shandong Province also carried out visits to Zambia, and a lot of enterprises are well established in Zambia. and they have received the great hospitality from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and relevant ministries in Zambia.
所以今天呢，我们代表团呢访问我们外交部，就是要构建完善双方交流渠道，推动务实合作呢不断的深入。
So today, leading the delegation and visiting the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, we are looking forward to further cement the cooperations between the two sides and expand the channels for further exchanges between the two sides.
这个我们希望呢，与贵部能够建立这个常态化的工作联络机制，来搭建呢更加通畅的这样一个渠道。
And we are looking forward.
And Mr. Malanji has assured Ms. Ren and her delegation that Zambia's ties with China remain intact. He says this is as the two countries implement the twinning of the two provinces. Mr. Malanji disclosed that the Eastern Province Administration is already putting in place all necessary paperwork with a view of harnessing the commitment to twin the two provinces.
We have a chain of bilateral relationships and multilateral relationship with many countries, and Zambia is in a hurry to foster development, and any country that comes to Zambia is most welcome because nature does not allow vacuum. So any country that comes in with interest to develop in Zambia is most welcome, and particularly the twinning of these provinces, like the province which you are going to, Eastern Province, is one province which has got even a discovery of gold in that province. So it is high time that we found developing cooperating partners that can actually help us to see us bring formal mining into this province, as opposed to what is obtaining now, where we have small-scale miners just digging here and there and not having.
Governance activist Leslie Chukse has welcomed government's decision to withdraw the motor vehicle replacement allowance for cabinet ministers effective January 1st, 2019 in adherence to the austerity measures. And Mr. Chukse has called on President Lungu to consider a 10% pay cut for ministers in line with the austerity measures. He has told QTV News that this will help save Zambia's ailing economy. Mr. Chukse says the move will also demonstrate leadership and demonstrate the efforts being put in place to solve the challenges that the country is facing, especially in the public sector.
Yeah, that it's a progressive idea that government has decided to scrap off the motor vehicle allowances that are given to the ministers, for usage for sometimes their personal needs. I think that looking at the austerity measures that were put across by the Patriotic Front government, under especially the able leadership at that time of Finance Minister, Mr. Felix Mtati, it was only prudent that such a decision be made at that time, so that by this time we could have avoided unnecessary waste of resources. However, it is good that it has come at this time, and what is very important is really to make sure that such a directive or such a decision is enforced, so that really we try by all means to avoid spillage of public funds through unnecessary costing like motor vehicle costing. We have seen in certain areas where people have even made applications to use fire tenders.
The National Action for Quality Education in Zambia, NAQUEZ, has implored the Ministry of Higher Education and Public Universities management teams to perfect their communication strategies to avoid instabilities at these important institutions. Speaking during a media briefing, NAQUEZ Executive Director Aaron Chansa says he has observed that in 2018, universities continued attracting controversies which resulted in protests by either the students or lecturers. Mr. Chansa says NAQUEZ would also like to see improved funding to public universities in the country as a way of stabilizing these institutions. And Mr. Chansa reiterated his call on the Ministry of General Education and the Examinations Council of Zambia to reform grade 7 exams or abolish them altogether. He says the current scenario where all those who sit for the grade 7 exams automatically find themselves in grade 8 regardless of their marks is retrogressive and is contributing to poor secondary school education and rampant exam leakages in the country. Mr. Chancellor says Nakwez proposes that the Ministry of Education introduces transitional tests from preschool up to grade 5. The Basic Education Teachers Union of Zambia Betus has commended the Teaching Service Commission TSC for facilitating the payment of teachers whose salaries were withheld on account that their transfers to various stations did not follow the right procedure. Recently, the Teaching Council of Zambia blocked salaries for 125 teachers who transferred from rural districts to Lusaka province and did not have their pay points normalized. The two spokesperson, Kabika Kakunta, says the teachers are not to blame as they were transferred by people in higher positions without following the transfer procedures. He has also appealed to teachers to follow the right procedure whenever they are requesting for transfers to avoid such occurrences in future. The Examinations Council of Zambia has challenged teachers who were engaged to mark examination papers last year and are claiming not to have received their allowances to substantiate their claims. ECZ Director Michael Chilala has told QTV News that all the teachers who were hired to mark the examinations have been paid with an exception of a few. Dr. Chilala says the teachers who have not received their payments are mostly those who submitted details which were not matching their bank account details. He has since emphasized the need for teachers to ensure their details are correct to avoid being inconvenienced.
So all the teachers that have marked exams before, we sent the payments. We do pay electronically. So we sent the payments to the bank. I think it was about April, May this year, for those who marked the previous year. But the challenge has been that there are some people who may give us wrong account details such that these payments get rejected. I'll give you examples of some people who would probably give us the spouse's account number because probably they have a loan with a bank or something. You know what I'm talking about. I also am aware that some people make mistakes in terms of account name. The name on the account and the name that they register themselves with us as markers may be different. Some make
National Union of Public and Private Educators of Zambia, NUPEZ, National Secretary Nelson Mwale, had appealed to the Examinations Council of Zambia to pay his union members who were engaged in marking examination papers last year.
As the National Union of Public and Private Educators of Zambia, NUPEZ, we want to sincerely urge the Examinations Council of Zambia to pay all outstanding arrears to our markers, if at all there are any, because in the marking process, we need a cadre of markers that is motivated. Without motivation, we risk having results that lack credibility. Having said that, I also want to urge our markers, who are our own members, to resist the temptation of, practicing malpractice. We've heard of malpractice taking place during the marking process. I think we have the integrity of the profession to protect, we have the name of the profession to protect. Can they resist that? Because at the end of the day, even marking which is not properly done is actually malpractice, and so we want them to do the right thing.
Miracles Impact Ministries International has complained that Minister of National Guidance and Religious Affairs Minister Godfrida Sumaili has repeatedly turned down requests by its senior prophet Bishop John Nundwe, popularly known as Bishop John General, to meet her. Bishop Nundwe was last month arrested by police together with his wife and another pastor for allegedly stealing 70,000 kwacha from Matilda Mwanza in 2016. Church Coordinator General Ruth Simundombe says the church has on a number of occasions written to the minister requesting for an appointment, but that all the requests have been turned down. Mrs. Simundombe says Bishop Nundwe deserves to be heard. She states that the outcry of the church is that they would like to know why Reverend Sumaili has been and is still refusing to meet Bishop Nundwe. Mrs. Simundombe says the church is ready to seek authority and stage a protest if it receives a negative response from the minister.
As a mother of national guidance and religious affairs, Honorable Godfrida Sumaili is there to embrace all men of God and women of God, to correct, give them advice and guidance. Right now, there is no love and unity among men of God. They are tearing each other apart. Her job is to reconcile them and not choosing and leaving others out. The first appointment arranged by the Honorable Minister was on 2nd October 2018 on a Tuesday morning around 8 hours. Honorable Sumaili refused to meet the prophet for unknown reasons. The second visitation was on 22nd November 2018. Equally, the prophet was not accorded a platform to meet Honorable Sumaili, and she was in her office but refused to see the man of God. This was after the church leadership visited her office and submitted all the church documents.
Bank of Zambia Deputy Governor for Administration Dr. Tukia Kankasamabula says the central bank has a strong commitment to financial inclusion for women. Speaking during the launch of the Labor Reigns and Beyond Understanding the Financial Lines of Low-Income Mothers report by the United National Capital Development Fund, UNCDF, Dr. Mabula says this is demonstrated in the bank's 2016 to 2029 strategic plan, where gender mainstreaming in the financial sector is one of the 5 strategic objectives. She says the central bank has made significant strides in mainstreaming gender in the banking sector through advocacy and developing the capacity of financial services through the International Labour Organization Female and Male Operated Small Enterprises FAMOS audit and other trainings in order to tailor their services to suit women and women-operated businesses. Dr. Mabula states that the Bank of Zambia is encouraged that the commitment to advance women's financial inclusion has been clarified, forwarded at a higher level in the 2017 to 2022 National Financial Inclusion Strategy for Zambia.
The bank and other stakeholders are currently drafting a revised strategy to facilitate the second phase of its implementation. The objective of the National Strategy on Financial Education is to empower Zambians with the knowledge, understanding, skills, motivation, and confidence to help them to secure positive financial outcomes for themselves and for their families. We are confident that the UNCDF report can inform the design and implementation of financial education programs for women, as the report consistently mentioned the motivation and aspiration for mothers to be financially literate. Digital financial literacy and the ongoing sensitization campaigns by the bank therefore have a significant role. But we can see where we can work together in terms of the financial education program. And the financial education program has actually worked very well in that we had put in targets that as they train, it should be 50-50. And
Speaking at the same event, UNCDF Regional Technical Specialist Nandini Hareshwara says despite the important roles that mothers play in households across geographies and income levels, Zambian women are largely excluded from the informal financial system, with only 40% women having access to any type or form of financial service. She says the key findings from the research highlight discrepancies as well as commonalities in access, use, behavior, barriers and challenges between rural and urban users and income levels and age groups.
Second is women are the original gig economy workers. Across every single economic spectrum, you have mothers talking about needing to take on multiple jobs in order to support the family, in order to sustain livelihoods. And you have part-time jobs in the formal and informal sectors to meet those household expenses. Almost every Zambian, I know men and women actually have a side job, have a side gig, have a side business. So this is incredibly relevant to our providers in the room who are trying to understand how to support not just individuals, but also the MSMEs in the country. For low-income mothers, about 75% work in the informal sector. Again, Aloma mentioned some of these things. 74% have a side business, and that brings in somewhere between $42 and $125 a month. Especially in rural areas, farming is one gig that can bring in uneven levels of income. So traditionally, most women in the rural areas do partake in farming, but how much money they make from that can really be uneven depending on what harvest season looks like, on what rainy season looks like, on what's going on in their particular families. And so how much of that money goes towards family expenses can really.
To end the news, we recap on stories making headlines. Government says the decision by Lusaka Mayor Miles Sampa to appoint an acting mayor in his absence is unlawful. Zambia's economic outlook for 2019 and 2020 has been projected to be positive, with growth forecast for 2019 expected at 4.1%. And the Lusaka Water and Storage Company has indefinitely suspended water supply to Chirundu district. On that note, we come to the end of the news. From me, Diana Sumbwe. Thank you for watching.